I got to feeling like zombie takeout, and that's no way to feel.
Hello and welcome to Zombie Takeout, the B movie and cult movie show. I'm John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's movie, so we were off last week and I was watching Hulu, or I was on Hulu, and
For the
just
record, it was not my fault.
no, it was my fault. Stuff happened. And so I was on Hulu just looking for something mindless, and I decided to watch the Power Rangers movie.
Wow. Why would you do that to
Well,
yourself?
I have to confess, the series was a bit of a guilty pleasure for me in the 90s.
Oof.
And it was actually pretty good. I mean, if you have any affection for the series, I recommend it. I mean, it's Bryan Cranston and Dacre Montgomery, who was Billy in the latest season of Stranger Things. Who was a great actor. So the cast is solid. And like I said, you have to like the series to begin
I
with.
had a nephew who grew up during the 90s, and I had to sit through some of those Power Ranger episodes, and holy shit, that was bad.
Well, I never thought it was good. I found it entertaining. So, so, if you have any affection for the series, I do recommend checking out the movie. Speaking of movies, on to this week's movie, which concludes our accidental, which is Shaft, which concludes our accidental 1970s in New York trilogy.
I think I put this on our review list 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. It was one of the first movies I think I put. I wanted on the list.
Choices, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we accidentally, thanks to 2 tribute episodes, we accidentally did 3 movies in a row that were from the 70s and set in New York City.
Rest in peace, Neil Simon and Burt Reynolds.
And thankfully not Richard Roundtree.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of, I had a bit of a mistaken identity earlier today, and we need to put Action Jackson on the list.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we do.
Anyway, of course, that brings us to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by ADR. It can be clear or it can be synced. It can't be both.
And also brought to you by Skloot Insurance Tax Returns. Please pardon our appearance while our neighbor removes gangsters. All right, so I watched this movie a long time ago.
I've never seen it before today.
Well, I'm talking about in preparation for this episode.
Oh, last week.
Yeah. Okay. So we begin with this. I mean, before the credits, even you just get this kind of scenes from New York City sort of thing, and you're kind of like, why are they doing this? There's like no sound or anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was ambient sound, wasn't there?
I guess just a little bit. Like you could just hear a few things here and there, and then really just for the sole purpose to make you realize they're not going to do this in a studio.
No, not at all.
This is going to be a real movie shot on the streets.
In fact, the opening of the film contains 15 seconds of rare documentation, in Metrocolor no less, of the Gay Activists Alliance protest march just a year and a half after Stonewall.
No shit, I didn't even notice that.
Shaft makes his way along 42nd Street in the title sequence under a memorable score by Isaac Hayes. This is a little later than what you're talking about. And he treads through a real-life demonstration against Fidelifax, an employment screening agency that once ferreted out homosexuals.
I mean, this has been very educational, this trilogy. Like in The Sunshine Boys, did you notice like the musical of the year was called Raisins? So I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, apparently there was a musical version of Raisin in the Sun.
Oh my! I noticed the raisins, but I didn't know what it was. Oh god,
that's what that is. Until we did that movie, I did not know that existed. Was like, that's very weird. I don't know if I can picture that, but all right.
A couple of the movies on the marquees at the beginning of Shaft are like 3 or 4 years old. I looked up a couple of them.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, we have this this gentleman who's just I guess making his way through New York City. It turns out there's people looking for him. When we actually get into the movie, he goes to a couple of his usual places, picks up a newspaper, gets, goes to like the shoe shine guy. Yeah, there's two people looking for him from uptown, and well, they eventually find him. And
Because there wouldn't be a movie if they didn't.
well, actually, he sees them before they see him, and he sneaks around the back of the building in, and of course gets the jump on them, or one of them at least. And then it leads to this. I don't understand if they're just taking him to see the guy, why they're like ready to fight him off.
Or why they have to be so covert about it. Why don't they
Right,
just approach him on
right,
the street and say, yeah, so and so was bumpy, wants to talk to you.
right. That's it. It's like, oh, you don't want to talk to him?
Then
Well,
there's an issue.
he's going to be pretty pissed about that. I mean, are you sure it's, or why Bumpy just didn't come to see him for himself in the first
Well,
place, which is
he's an
really,
important man. He's got a lot to do. He's not
I
just people.
mean, knowing this, what you learn about this guy, later on in the movie, you're just kind of like, why wouldn't he have just come to see him in the first place? Of course, he's going to fuck your guys up. In fact, he kills one.
Yeah.
He gets whoopsie daisy out the window. So, back to Isaac Hayes' score, of course. We really missed an opportunity here, and I don't think we'll ever get this again. But we could have done the movie and the soundtrack for both episodes.
Oh wow, yeah. We'll have to do the soundtrack at a later date.
Right, but I mean, is there another movie you can think of us doing a soundtrack to
it
that
would have been perfect. We didn't think of it.
I mean, unless we're doing Judgment Night or
Footloose.
Singles. What's up?
Footloose.
Footloose. Let's talk about a good soundtrack. But so right,
and we'll be talking plenty about the score.
Right. Eventually, they. Oh yeah, I have my notes. Chekhov's window. I don't,
Yeah.
They introduce a window. It has to go out. So eventually, Bumpy does talk to him, of course, and the deal is he is his daughter has been kidnapped, and he wants to hire John Shaft, the private investigator, as the person who's going to find his daughter to bring him back. During all of this, though, the cops have been hounding Shaft too, because they just want to find out what the fuck is going on.
Mm-hmm.
Now they know a lot more than Shaft knows, actually, but they want they want even more details because they're worried about a gang war or mob war happening in the city, which of course lots of people get shot up and killed.
And Shaft has the access and connections that they don't.
Right. So they're of course dropping in on him repeatedly, and of course when someone falls out his window, they take him down for for questioning too. And so let's see. They, of course, the first step is to get an army, and that's where we take one of Shaft's old friends, who is the head of a militant black organization. And although his guys don't seem all that good to me.
No.
I mean, Shaft single-handedly sneaks by most of them, and the first thing he tells them, you need to put more guys down there. Which is pretty obvious. I mean, it's I'd be like, maybe I should go find some other people to hire for this. So yeah,
it would have been a little too unrealistic if Shaft just went in there alone and killed them all.
So right, so Shaft, he has history with the leader of this militant wing, which they team up. They track down where they're hiding her. Of course, they of course fail in the first attempt, but then they bust in for a second, and I guess you could just say it's hilarity ensues. Shitty.
And That soundtrack. Let's just start on the soundtrack
Of
because
course, the soundtrack is the like first the thing you see is New York City and just drink it in,
uh
and then they hit you with the soundtrack.
and this was the origin of 70s cop drama funk that I was
Right.
complaining about last time.
Exactly. I was telling you last week, you'll understand what they were trying to get when
Well, I
you see
heard the
this.
main theme, so yeah, I do get it. Yeah, this is where it came from. Isaac Hayes got it right. Although I think the strings and woodwinds in his score may have influenced disco.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, think about it. He was taking the Stax players and putting them together with an orchestra.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he was kind of a mad genius, for all that.
And the vocal was a lot softer and more casual than I remember because it's been a long time since I've heard the song.
It's a very different mix than what you get. Like his his voice is very, yeah, it's very, I'm trying to think where I put it in the notes. But
It
yeah, it
kind
was
of,
really differently
yeah, it
mixed.
sounded like it was like he one take early in the morning. He just walked up and sang it. It's very casual, very relaxed, and I think I've heard that, just talking about Shaft thing more in reference to the original than the original.
Yeah,
And it always comes off more intensely in the parodies and in the references than it was in the original, which is
yeah,
interesting. I also liked the blind joke. He comes across this newspaper vendor who's blind, and the guy, he's, this is the person who tells Shaft that there are people from upstate or from, yeah,
uptown.
uptown, thank you, from Harlem looking for him. And the blind guy says they all look the same to me. I appreciated that joke.
Yes.
Although, were shoe shine parlors a thing?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Oh, he also did shoe repair, I think, if I was
Okay,
looking at the
okay.
signs right. But yeah, I mean, nor a lot of times it's just like a bunch of, benches in a
Well,
train
I've seen them
station.
outdoor. Yeah, I've seen like an individual shoe shine person outside, or at a corner. But this was like a storefront lined with chairs for doing shoe shines.
I mean, of course, nobody gets their shoes shine anymore, so those things are like,
Oh yeah, true.
yeah, there's very few of them left
Mhm.
now.
Yeah,
Like I
I,
know a couple places in Chicago where you can get it done,
uh,
but I mean, they're so
I was
rare.
just shocked that there was a dedicated shoe shine parlor.
But I mean, you can't. They wouldn't exaggerate something because it was of its time, and I mean,
True,
it
true.
was incredibly realistic
Yeah.
with the setting. There was no playing with that.
Although there was one thing that kind of took me out of it a bit, as I referenced in my sponsor, the ADR was atrocious.
There's some scenes where, yeah, like the lighting was just,
But anytime they were filming outside in New York in the middle of the day, where they
yeah,
would have had to loop the dialogue because there was just too much street noise,
yeah,
it was consistently out of sync.
there was a lot, right? And then like that running joke in the movie that they end with.
Mhm.
Um, I watched this on like back when the word shit wasn't, you weren't allowed to even say it on
Right,
cable.
right.
Like what, it was very confusing watching this back in the day on TV because that was all censored
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
and it was kind of like, wait a minute, what's the last line of the movie?
And
you know,
speaking, okay,
you
but
had no idea what any of
yeah,
that
right.
meant.
Yeah, yeah.
But
They just ruined a running gag.
yeah,
Speaking of hard to understand, there was one line. It was a scene when a taxi won't pick Shaft up. He gets to the door and it, takes off and
yeah,
leaves him there because he's black. And he looks after it and says, "White mother." At least that's what you hear.
yeah.
Looks like his lips are saying something very different. And I couldn't figure out what he was saying. It's not like it was obvious what he was saying. He may have been saying that just with some bad syncing.
Yeah.
But
I imagine that's a nightmare to do, to
oh
just
yeah.
sync up the dialogue like that.
Mhm. I've had to adjust it for this show, one of our videos a while back by
Oh
hand.
yeah,
It was not easy. A lot of trial and error. No, the movie is interesting because it's based on a series of novels by Ernest Tidyman.
really?
Yeah, I'd love to read the novels. But the movie is kind of paced like a novel. I kind of feel like they adapted it correctly for a change
Huh.
because it is kind of mellow and I'm not quite meandering, but there's no real tension.
No, it is very much a slice of life.
That's exactly where I was going. I forgot the phrase weirdly
It
because
it,
it's a big anime thing.
it's very very strange that you're just looking into, and it's not just this, black man's life. It is looking at, you
The
know,
environment. It's about the characters and the environment.
the middle class, the militants,
Yeah,
the poor.
it's a
Uh,
snapshot of the time,
yeah.
which is surprising because it was a blaxploitation film. It was supposedly, not necessarily intended to be exploitative. Well, I guess it kind of was. But it was intended to kind of most of the blaxploitation films kind of unrealistically portrayed, the black community. And here comes Shaft and just does a very gritty, realistic version of it.
Yeah, I would never consider this a black exploitation film
It's always
because,
labeled that.
yeah, I think this showed that, well, this there's an audience here that we can make money off of, and
Yeah.
then, after this came a lot of those, I think.
Well, I can't remember the name of it. Sweet something or other. It was a Melvin Van Peebles movie that was before this.
Wow.
That was supposedly the first blaxploitation film, at least of the 70s. And that Melvin Van Peebles thought that Shaft ripped him off a bit, but it was a little close to a bit of an influence. Now, a bit about the performances. Richard Roundtree chews the scenery, but it was a blast watching him do it.
Do you think, was
It's
his
not a low key
mustache real?
performance.
Because I don't think his mustache was real,
No.
and I couldn't look away from it
It was
once I reached that conclusion.
I mean, it wasn't quite Jeffrey Combs level chewing the scenery, but he was close. And it went similarly to Combs. It was very fun to watch. On the other side of the equation, the actor who played Bumpy, who I don't know his name offhand, was very nicely constrained. The actor who played Bumpy, nicely constrained, very calm performance, and very kind of menacing.
Well, yeah. Was it Moses? Oh man, he gets like top billing.
Mhm. But yeah, I was very surprised because, by reputation, this movie is really over the top and ridiculous.
Moses Gunn. Yeah.
By reputation, the movie's really over the top and ridiculous, and a lot of it is. But here's this very really understated, constrained performance by the villain, effectively.
Yeah, there's no arch.
Heavy. Yeah,
He does kind of lay it on thick with his daughter, but you wonder like how, like,
it's his daughter. He gets away with it.
yeah.
And even Hayes' score, as brilliant as it is, was over the top. He was practically the narrator at points.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm really gonna ding this for anything, but that sex scene was bizarre.
It was very shoehorned in.
And okay, so he starts, they start going at it, and then it just cuts to her hands just kind of perpetually massaging his ass. With this paper mobile that they shot from behind earlier, kind of blurry in the foreground. And then that's it.
It really serves it serves no purpose just other than that, okay, they want to make sure he's straight.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he has another scene with another woman like a little after that
Yeah.
to go, he's really straight.
Exactly. He's Bond straight.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure Bond was an influence on the character.
Probably, yeah.
He's
What'd you
kind
think
of the Black Bond.
of the like his friend on the police force?
I liked Vic. I loved the chemistry between the two of them.
Like at first I was kind of and then when he busted on Shaft a little
Yeah.
bit, like when he was sitting outside the hallway and overheard
Right.
the other woman, just telling him pretty much calling him an asshole, and
Because
other words.
they start off with a really kind of undefined role. We're not undefined, but it feels like the cop harassing the private eye
Yeah.
initially, and it feels a bit antagonistic. In the interrogation scene after the office fight, I think is where it really came together for me, because Vic kind of defends him and kind of rescues him a little bit. Loved the chemistry between him and Byron, the guy who was investigating or interrogating him too. That back and forth was great.
They point out the fact that you know, he's Italian, of course,
Mhm.
the cop, and where he holds up the black pen shaft, saying, "You're not
Mhm.
that black," and he holds
Mhm.
up a white coffee mug to him, saying, "You're not really that white," which
Yeah, that
Italians
was
in those days,
yeah. Oh,
oh,
it was pushy in a
really
lot of ways.
white.
It pushed a lot of buttons, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Speaking of the office scene, we kind of glossed over that the fight. Really interesting fight choreography. Um, the close-ups on the hits were very clever. A nice, clever way to get around it. And of course, you have the big stunt going out the window.
yeah.
But a lot of the two-shot choreography was really solid. Surprisingly, because like I said, I didn't really have a lot of expectations.
Well, yeah, a lot of these movies, the fight choreography back then. I mean, we've
Yeah,
seen like the samurai movies.
exactly. There was one other moment that was thoroughly bizarre. It's a scene with Bumpy where I think it was when Bumpy kind of twisted the knife on Shaft a little bit and said, like, I'm changing I'm altering the deal effectively.
Yeah,
And there's a scene with him and his friend, Shaft and his friend, and with Bumpy. Bumpy's telling them the new deal, and he practically looks directly into the camera. It felt like a Shakespearean aside, except he wasn't talking to the audience.
hmm. Well, I think, are you talking about the moment where they're asking for the money? Like
Yeah,
how
yeah,
what
yeah,
they're wasn't that like straight out of Austin Powers?
yeah, yeah,
Weren't you expecting a lot more than just $50
yeah.
an hour? You
And
know,
the Austin Power scene was straight out of Shaft, but yeah.
right. Well, yeah, but it's like, yeah, I want $50 an hour. You're like, wait, what? Are you? I mean, you're going up against mobsters. I think
1971.
you should get a little bit more than that, man.
But Bumpy just looks straight into the camera. He's talking to Shaft, but he looks straight into the camera. And it felt like a Shakespearean character addressing the audience. It was weird. Another weird bit. He walks into this bar across the street from his office. First, he sends some guy, some stoner, to go turn on his lights.
I loved the whole bar scene.
Yeah. He sends a stoner guy who is a contact of his to go turn on his lights as a
Yeah.
decoy. Walks into a bar and he just says, "Let me work behind there for a minute," to the bartender. He doesn't work behind there, but the bartender just lets him take the bar
Yeah,
for
the
a minute.
bartender's bucket. Okay, sure. I get a
Was
break.
weird. And I like the bartender.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure about this stat or this, trivia, but apparently it was one of the first movies with a character saying that they're gay.
I was wondering about that. This is like a year after Myra. I had to research this too because it's like,
Mhm.
how many gay characters were there in film before '71? I mean, this is like a year after Myra Breckinridge. I'm not
Right.
sure how out that
Yeah.
was, but it was it was Gorby
It
Dow.
was like one of the first, and those were characters who were gay but didn't necessarily say it, you know.
Well, and the fact is, he's gay, and he's not a villain.
Right.
He's not an asshole. He's actually helping the hero out a little bit without like harassing him.
And this was released 2 years after Stonewall, probably written the year after, if
Yeah.
not the same year. So that was really progressive. And I just liked the character. I mean, he was kind of stereotypically gay, but he was very entertaining.
Well, they also, I mean, they're in the village.
No, true.
I mean, that was kind of the first thing. I'm like, wait a minute, Shaft doesn't live in Harlem. He lives in the village.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, interesting.
And now we get to that cafe you were talking about.
What's the line? Like, hey, throw me a towel.
Oh yeah, on the way out of the bar. He sets up. He has the lights turned on as a decoy for these two guys waiting for him to get to his office so they can knock him off. He
But yeah,
shows up
that
at the
whole,
bar
I enjoyed that whole scene very
and he
much.
calls he calls Vic, pretending that Vic's his girlfriend, and he gets the cops there. So, yeah.
And well, then, and after that, that's when you have the interracial scene,
Oh yeah, the other sex scene, which really was
which
just she walks into the shower. The only nudity in the movie.
he picks up. Yeah, he picks up the girl from the bar,
Mm,
and I mean, how many people did you think flipped
true.
for an
Yeah.
interracial sex scene in 1971?
Well, that's probably why they cut it as she gets into the shower with him. They kiss, and that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
you get the idea, but it doesn't
Oh yeah,
actually
yeah.
have sex. Now, the cafe scene, there is no X in espresso. Pet peeve of mine.
But it's 71. How common was
I'm
espresso back
fair
then?
point, but I'm tempted to not get a brain for that.
And as we discussed beforehand, Cafe Reggio does exist on McDougal Street, has been there since 1927.
Uh,
I've got this, it's a few doors down from the Comedy Cellar. I have like a Google map thing about it, like you can see the street view. Uh, and if you were paying attention to stuff like out the window or when they leave the cafe, all of that shit is still there.
oh yeah.
You can recognize this one building with the iron awning,
Mm.
in it, and e- e- everything is still there. Even the falafel place
Ha.
next door.
I'm surprised falafels were a thing in the 70s.
It was established in 1971, so it
Oh
was
wow,
just went into
brand new.
business.
Okay.
It is still there as well.
Mhm. And I wonder how much business the cafe gets from fans of the movie.
That's a very good question. Well, I know. I'm like, next time I'm in New York, I've got to fucking go
Mhm.
there.
Mhm. Now, it got to the point where there were about 20 minutes left in the movie. And I think this was around the time they were starting the assault on the kidnappers.
Yeah.
It was just before Shaft got shot, which shocked me. I did not expect him to get shot. I
What-
figured he'd be an impervious action hero.
What's the solution to someone getting shot? Oh, yeah, put him on the
Yeah,
couch.
yeah, yeah. Knife, but they got the bullet. But I got to that point with 20 minutes left, and I had no idea what was going on, but I was still enjoying the ride. That's the weird thing about this movie. The There's no tension, there's no pace, and it made me wonder if movies since the 70s have become more plot and emotionally driven and simplistic. You know,
I don't know. I mean,
if they've relied more since then on these heavy, intense plots that kind of keep you on the edge of your seat.
yeah, doesn't it feel like you've just seen the same plot so many times in
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
movies?
Oh,
They they
I'm
kid. I
I'm
mean, I
writing a novel that parodies the hero's journey. So yes,
I mean, I guess you could say, they kidnapped someone's daughter here, and that's like the gist of this plot. But that's almost like a side thing. I mean, you almost feel like this movie could have happened without this kidnapping in the
yeah,
first
oh yeah,
anyway.
yeah, absolutely. It kind of felt like it didn't detract from the movie, but it did kind of feel like an unnecessary plot. But even the scene where they're breaking in to rescue Bumpy's daughter lacked tension.
Yeah.
And it's this army of guys with guns breaking in, to this apartment building to rescue a girl, and there was no tension. But it worked, and that's the amazing thing about the movie. And it resolved just as quickly because they get her out, and then they did, and Fuzz did this last time as well. They fix the problem, and there's no denouement.
Yeah, it is very jarring how quickly this ends. But of course, the difference between this and Fuzz had like a lot of shit that was really heavy
Oh yeah,
that
yeah,
they
okay.
were treating completely lightly.
Right, right,
This was they've got the girl, they just need to get paid,
right,
and you can assume that he's gonna fucking pay him, or
right.
else they're all gonna fuck him up.
Of course,
But then he just places the call to the
to Vic real fast,
to
and
Vic. Yeah,
it ends on that same running joke.
yeah.
And was it just my copy, or were the closing credits a little askew?
I didn't.
You didn't notice, okay.
Yeah.
On to sequels and remakes.
Wow. Yeah. I can't wait for us to do some of the sequels.
Yeah,
Actually, I've never
Chef.
seen the sequels.
I have a feeling it's gonna be like a lot of movies that were great but had very weak sequels.
Well, yeah. I mean, the fact that like the third one is Shaft in Africa
Yeah, Shaft
just
initially had
look
two had
just
two
looks
se-
ridiculous.
Shaft initially had two sequels called Shaft's Big Score, which
Mhm.
title alone doesn't have me thinking much, and Shaft in Africa, 72 and 73 respectively, with
I've
ni-
just seen clips of him riding a camel.
with neither capturing the soul of the original, according to author Howard Hughes. It,
Yeah.
An additional sequel and part remake was released in 2000 called Shaft, starring Samuel L.
which
Jackson.
I did enjoy.
You did like, okay, I now have to check that out. As John Shaft II, the nephew of John
Well,
Shaft.
Samuel L. Jackson.
True,
That,
true,
that
true.
was the movie was like, don't make me run after you.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out.
They are, which I just found out tonight. There's going to be a sequel to that one next
Oh,
year,
nice. Okay, nice.
like 18, 19 years
Yeah,
later.
I have that at the end of this. And also in 73 and 74, there was a short-lived television series on CBS starring Richard Roundtree as Shaft. Um,
What?
there was a 73-74 CBS TV show titled
GI
Shaft.
Shaft? Did you say GI Shaft?
No, there was a CBS TV show
Yeah.
called based on Shaft,
Oh, okay.
73-74, starring Roundtree.
Because what I was thinking, this movie needs a prequel. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, uh, like, where did he get all this training from? Was he military?
Right, right.
Was he on the police force himself? I mean, like a young Shaft with of course, I mean, you could have Vic as like his could be like a partner or
The
supervisor or
new
whatever.
cop, kind of go like they did with with Nolan's Batman movies, where Gordon was a new cop.
Yeah. Like a junior partner sort of thing, bringing him along.
Mhm.
You know, they could have a history together easily
Yeah,
from this.
absolutely.
And of course, Ben, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, what was the backstory on Ben? Yeah,
yeah,
his friend who had the Black Militant Organization.
yeah.
Now,
So that's why I keep
also,
thinking military. Like Vic might have been like
oh yeah, Vic
a
definitely strikes me
commanding
as military.
officer, and then Shaft and Ben were like
Yeah, interesting.
GIs.
Okay, I wouldn't expect him to go back that far, but that's an interesting take on it. Ernest Tidyman wrote six Shaft novel sequels, including Goodbye, Mr. Shaft and Shaft Carnival of Killers. So the book sequels don't sound any better than the movie sequels.
Yeah, the movie sequels just do sound ridiculous and
Yeah, yeah,
awful, which is I think why we have to review them.
yeah, of course. And on to what you were talking about. In February 2015, The Wrap reported that Shaft would be rebooted by New Line Cinema, with John Davis producing the new film. In July 2015, The Hollywood Reporter reported that Kenya Barris and Alex Barrow would be writing the script. Davis and Ira Napoliano, or no, Napiolo, I apologize, would be producing, and with Richard Brenner and Samuel with Richard Brenner and Samuel J. Brown would direct. Hollywood Reporter wrote that the film will have a comedic tone, but will retain its action roots. When he was asked about that characterization of the film, Davis said, "It's drama, but it's going to be a drama with a lot of fun moments. So not too far off the original. Sounds like
Yeah,
a light of lighter moments." In January 2017, Deadline reports that Tim Story will direct the film, a sequel, which will follow the son of John Shaft. In August 2017, it was revealed that Richard Roundtree and Samuel L. Jackson would reprise their roles from previous films, and Jesse T. Usher portraying the son of John Shaft. In November of last year, the film was revealed to be entitled Shaft and would be released on June 14th, 2019.
nice.
So just under a year until we get another Shaft movie. All right, so on to Brains.
On the brains.
I'm going 5. It's
Yeah,
not a perfect movie, but it's just so brilliant in its way that I can't take anything away from it.
it capitalizes on its grit.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
that's it doesn't strive to be a perfect movie at all. I mean, the lighting in that cafe scene alone, you're kind of like, wow, why does this look so shitty? And then you're like, oh, because they're not in a
No, no,
studio.
they're actually in the cafe. Yeah,
They're in the fucking cafe, and you can see across the street, and it's all there. But
and
yeah, watch that scene and watch them walking outside of it, and then like I'll like share the Google map.
mhm.
You're just like, it's all there.
So two fives.
Yeah, two fives.
And it's a gritty slice of life with action, which sounds like a contradiction, but it works.
Yeah, it almost makes it more realistic. Of like, oh, there's no like flourish or
Right. There's
crescendo.
no plot.
It's
There's
just
no.
like,
Yeah.
we got her. All right, it's done.
Exactly. All right. So what have we learned?
Apparently, black people know the Vulcan neck pinch.
And I learned that what you think and what you can prove are two different bags. All right, that's it for Shaft. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't. Until next time, and we'll be reviewing Hardcore Henry. This is one of your picks again. I know nothing about the movie.
Picked for a different reason.
Ah,
You might not even make it through this one.
oh, this might be the legendary tap out. Oh,
Yeah, oh, I think so. I mean, this is, a first person movie.
oh my. Okay, that'll be interesting. Until then, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there
There
you
you
are.
are.